Books on Books on the Brain.
Welcome back to Books on the Brain, a podcast of books and nonsense. I'm Deirdre,
I'm Danielle.
and today, as you can see, we are joined by some very special guests with our almost annual Pride Party. So let me introduce you to everybody. Rachel, aka a model who reads, is a Canadian book blogger passionate about dark fantasy novels, queer rom-coms, and dinosaur facts. With over 159,000 followers on BookTok and 14,000 followers on BookTube, she uses her social media to share her love for stories and fascination with the fantastical. When not reading, you can find her browsing local bookstores, arguing with her sewing machine, and drinking copious amounts of iced coffee. Bridget Raimundo, I really hope I'm pronouncing your name
Good,
correctly,
perfect.
is currently the social media producer at CBC Books and is known on Book Talk as Bridge Likes Books. As a content creator and columnist for CBC's The Next Chapter, Bridget uses her platform to talk about her love of books across many genres, with an emphasis in reading about Asian, diasporic, and queer experiences. She currently lives in Toronto. And last but certainly not least, we have Ryan LaSala, a best-selling and award-winning author known for his genre-defying queer-centered horror and fantasy, including The Honeys, which is in development to become a major motion picture. He is also the author of Beholder, Reverie, and Bedazzled. He has been featured in the New York Times Book Review, Entertainment Weekly, NPR, and more. He writes to you from New York, overseen by his cat, Haunted Little Girl, and his next release, The Dead of Summer, is coming out on September 16th of this year, 2025. Welcome, everybody. We are so excited to have you on the podcast.
Thanks
Hi.
for
Hello, hello.
How is everybody doing today?
Oh, so good. I'm so excited to be here.
We're
I'm
so
so excited that you
excited
guys
to
asked
have
me
you
back.
here.
Yes, hello, everybody. I can't wait to get started.
Yay!
We love our Pride Party. It's like we started it our first season, and I feel like it's the thing we look forward most to putting together and hosting because it's not often that we get to bring together a bunch of our online friends and just chat about stuff.
Yeah, chat about books and stuff.
So, to get us rolling, our first question for everybody is we would love if you would talk about your first Pride experience.
Whatever you feel comfortable sharing, you
Right,
know?
right,
I don't, maybe
right.
a maybe a vulnerable topic, but whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
I mean, I'll jump in because, first of all, I'm so excited to be invited back. And I was thinking about this leading up to the Pride Party. And I really do feel like this podcast was my first Pride experience, like genuinely, because I came out in November 2019, lockdown. And then and then I remember being invited on your podcast and being this like very new and had not literally gone out into the world person being like, am I even qualified to be on this podcast? I don't know how queer I am. Like, I'm not, I haven't done anything. Like, I was very in my head about it. And just the like warmth and acceptance of like actually getting to talk with other queer bookish people, especially. Like, I feel like that was my first Pride experience. So, kudos to you guys and thanks for having me.
Aww.
Got me about to cry.
Ouch, my heart. Sweet
That's so
alert.
beautiful.
Sweet alert.
Okay,
And
I will go next.
Yes.
Oh, filming in front of a live studio audience.
Right.
yeah, I literally.
Okay, well, I also didn't come out until a little bit later. I don't, many people come out much later than I did, but I still felt like I was a little bit late. But for so long in Vancouver, the Pride parades are over the August long weekend, and that was always when my family was out of town, so I never got to go. And I think my first time going was when I was 23, 22, and that was just because I had looked at it for years and been like, that looks so fun. Like, I'm not queer, but like, it looks so cool. And like, I'd love to go as an ally and stuff. And I did that for so long. And then finally, when I kind of accepted that, like, maybe there's something a little fruity going on. And I was finally able to go. I went with some of my friends who had been going for years. And that was so nice to not only have a guide to kind of like prepare me for, the bombasticness of a pride parade, and how big Vancouver Pride is, but it was so wonderful to finally just like be in a big community where you could really like feel the love coming out. So that was the first time that it was so big, but it was so monumental to me.
I love that. I kind of have this opposite experience where I was I was gay from a very young age, right away, right away. And my mom knew before I did, and so she did kind of everything she could to make sure that I knew queer people, queer adults specifically, because she wanted me to know that like, once I started questioning my own identity, that I would understand that there was a future sort of beyond, our small town. And so she took our family to Provincetown, Massachusetts every summer, which is this like really queer gay town at the very tip of the Cape. And so we would have like these amazing weeks in the summer. And that town is like basically half drag queens. And my mom would like give me dollar bills to like go give to the drag queens. And it was this really beautiful experience that I kind of took for granted because it was all I knew at the time. But then when I sort of was figuring myself out a little bit later, I didn't feel sort of the shame that I feel like is kind of automatic for a lot of queer people. And I also had such a clear reference of like queer culture, queer in-person culture, that I think it saved me from a lot of the confusion that I think is almost unavoidable for a lot of folks that didn't have the luck of being in my household growing up.
That is so
That's
I want to
delightfully
go on this road
wonderful.
trip.
beautiful.
Um, my first Pride experience was walking in a Pride parade, um, which was I walked basically I went to a university in Lethbridge, which is like this small southern Alberta town. Many call it like the Texas of Canada. Or like sub Alberta is the Texas of Canada. Southern Alberta is like the Bible Belt, very religious. So I worked with a theater company uh, down in the city, and I ran their musical theater program for kids. And they were like, "We have a float in the Pride Parade," and I was like, "Ah, "Get me in." So I walked in this parade, and what was beautiful about it was, um, I walked in it 4 years in a row, and just to see how much the event grew every year, and how many um, kids and how many families and how many older folk, like just the whole community came together, and it was so well attended, which sometimes you don't always feel like you have a safe space in small towns, in small very religious towns. So that was so beautiful and so wonderful. And I'll never forget, eventually later in my time in Lethbridge, I started teaching high school. I'm a teacher, and I'd have students who would come and be in the parade with me, and who would come walk with me and come see me in the parade, and they're like, "Oh my God, my teacher is gay and in this parade." And I was like, "Yeah, I am," which is very, very, very like an honor, not like an honor. It is an honor to be able to say that and be able to represent for some little guys. That was mine. What about you, Dee?
As the token straight person of all my friend groups, I am not surprised that I haven't been to like a labeled Pride event yet, mostly because like post-COVID, I don't know if anybody else feels this, crowds scare the crap out of me. Like I was never great in crowds to begin with, but seeing how busy New York Pride is, I get this like fleeting anxiety, and I'm like, okay, I want to go because I want to experience it at least once in my life, but I feel like I need to find a group of people to go with that'll manage my anxiety with me. But like an adjacent Pride event, I guess, when I was working for an opera company in Pittsburgh one summer when I was in college. And the drag queens that worked for Pulse, the Orlando club, were doing a tour the year after the shooting. And they happened to come through Pittsburgh when we were there. And so we went to their event, and it was sort of like an offshoot of a Pride event, and it was so beautiful. It was the first drag show I'd been to, and it was so joyful and exciting, and we got to talk to all the drag queens after they all performed, and like I already knew that I wanted to be an ally or at least some part of the queer community, but that was like one of those solidifying moments of like, yeah, this is an amazing community, not only in who is in it, but also seeing these people who had actively been either like on their shift during the shooting or like had the day off, but knew people that had been at the shooting, and seeing them create this tour and this event to raise money for their specific community. It was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, it's so wonderful to hear.
I know.
I love everyone's. I like a diversity of stories too. I think sometimes people like me get centered in pride conversations, right? Like the prototypical like white gay guy.
Mm.
Always lovely to hear about people who have, despite that, found their way into like pride-centric events and have felt welcomed. I feel like that's kind of where pride events shine and should be sort of aimed at. So I have like chills thinking about kind of the different types of experience that people have.
Yeah, and just to add on, like, Pride events have moved so beyond the parade for me as someone
Hmm.
who like had to find my way into it, where now it's just like it's anything activity that I'm doing in the month of June can qualify as a Pride event
I
because I
agree.
am gay and it is Pride.
Yes, and I am
Absolutely.
celebrating. I'm worth celebrating. Hello.
Me
Oh my
getting
gosh,
that
someone's
coffee,
blowing.
Pride
Hold
event.
on.
And, everybody, I'm sure, is well aware of how almost any community is meant to feel like, oh, there's only one experience. And we all know that that's not true. And it's so lovely that even in this small group, each of us had a very different experience, but all of it is centered in this thing that brings us all together.
Yeah,
Totally.
I think any event is a Pride event if it has those things.
Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay, next question. What is it like to be a queer content creator / author in 2025? Which I know is a loaded question. So, the highs, the lows of high school basketball, no, football. What does he say in Riverdale?
Oh, what are you
Football.
talking about?
What do you mean? What am I talking about? It's called pop culture, Deirdre. Get on with it. What is it like? How are we feeling? What's it like in 2025?
Okay,
Your faces
I-
say it all, truly.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Okay, so I feel like part of it is just the content creator issues that kind of just bleed over into it, like, oh, always having to be on top of the newest things and feeling like you can never be inclusive enough because someone's always going to say, oh, you missed this book, or what about this one? But I think that's just kind of general. Like if I talk about queer books, if I talk about fantasy, if I talk about romance, like someone's always going to be piping up asking about one more thing, or what about this one, or you forgot this one. So just that in general of like having to keep up with stuff. And thankfully, like queer publishing has come so far and there's so much now, which is amazing, instead of the only 5 books that we had in like 2010. So there's that. But then also I find there's like a little bit of tension with the bi community. I am bi, and so having books that, if there's a heterosexual facing couple, but maybe they're both bi or the girl is bi, and I talk about that book, people are like, that's a straight book. Or like, that's not, like, why are you including that one? That doesn't count. And I'm like, yes, so that does count, because just because people look a certain way in a relationship doesn't mean that that is their dynamic or that is their gender. So that I find sometimes is a little annoying, or people constantly like, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? You can please cut me warbling for like 10 whole minutes while I get my thoughts together. I've had one coffee this morning, or keep it in. I don't know. How relatable do you want me to be?
If
People
we're
like
keeping my stupid football comment, we can keep your rap.
Okay, great. People policing certain things, like sometimes that's good of saying like, oh, actually that character is not, bi, they're lesbian, like that's fine. But I feel like the vitriol gets pretty heavy if I say like, oh, this is a bi book, and then find out later that like, oh, the main character is pan. But like I'll have people in my comment section be like, that's not a bi book, that person's pan. And I know it's a more aggressive tone, so sometimes that is a little bit like, okay, we made a mistake, or that's fine. We can relax a little bit when it comes to everything. So yeah, but then again, a lot of it, going back to my first point, is just typical book blogger content stuff that gets mixed in with Pride.
I feel like I have a different experience with this because I'm not the one like recommending books or trying to like typify. And in the queer community, like we love to typify experiences, right? And then we love to like police each other like pretty heavily. And there's a lot of like purity testing and stuff like that too. And I have a lot of respect for the people that wade into the territory of like, I'm going to recommend these books to you because I know that they're going to get a diversity of reactions. Some in good faith, but some not. And for me, I tend to just be talking about my own books, and it's kind of hard to contest an author about like their own experience. Yet it does happen a surprising amount where people like it's interesting because like a lot of my readers are teens because I write YA novels, but many are adults and they sort of bring a different sort of generational vocabulary into their reading experience. And I've gotten a lot of messages from older gay guys being like, the fact that you identify as queer is so offensive. Like I was bullied like within an inch of my life, and that's the word that they used. But now we think of queer as sort of a more all-encompassing, really generous term. And sometimes you'll run afoul of those fault lines that kind of exist between generations. But for the most part, I've been really bolstered by the fact that the queer community kind of does show up heavily for books and for my books. And I definitely wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for like the grassroots effort to like lift my first book at least like up to the visibility of editors and agents because I got discovered online, right? Like I tried to query that book. I failed completely. I had a 102 rejection rate on that query, and it was only because of like activity on the internet surrounding me in that book that I finally got someone to like look at it. So despite the difficulties, I feel like I'm always going to feel pretty at home in online spaces, being like a queer book writer.
Yeah. I feel like it's been an evolution for me because, I mean, as most of us came to Book Talk, like in the early days where we were just doing it for fun and had no idea the visibility that we were going to get. Um, and yeah, like I said before, it came out pretty early, then started making content and then kind of just fell into it. Whereas
Mhm.
now it's like most of the content and books that I recommend are on National Public Broadcast Radio. So, very different audience, very different demographics. And that's been like an adjustment for me as well, where just coming from like this space where all my references are understood and there's really like a camaraderie uh, to then like, oh, how do I navigate this space? How do I um, reach out and a blessed part of my job is that I get to talk to a lot of queer authors and meet a lot of new talent, and that's like the most rewarding part is seeing them shine and seeing how the reader audience, specifically in Canada, because if you're queer, awesome, you'll have an audience there. But if you're Canadian and queer, like we will rally for you. Um, so that's been lovely, but it has been like the distinction of posting little videos for myself and then to now where my cousins are showing my Filipino grandma on the other side of the world my radio broadcasts where I talk about being queer and she doesn't know that, but luckily she doesn't really understand English, so we're like still safe. But that's been the kind of 180 for me.
It is so interesting, especially because we have 3 out of 5 people in Canada right now on this talk. Only 2 of us are in the US. And not that Canada isn't under massive scrutiny when it comes to queer media. But right now, at least like in the last 6 months, it's been as a creator that likes to platform queer content and in my like academic world, I do a lot of work on the history of gendered fashion. And it's been so fraught. Like I gave a talk a couple weeks ago and I um got asked a question by a young like undergrad college student. She was like, "Do you think things are going to change?" And I was like, "I don't want to answer that question today. If you had asked me that question a year ago, I would have had a much better answer." And it's really refreshing to like, because I feel like as a creators, things can become so insular and you're so focused on what you're creating, how what you're creating fits into the zeitgeist. Pull out a big fancy word. Um, but when we come into spaces like this where we all get to talk with each other, I'm like, oh, we are all feeling this, but then also it doesn't, it matters that what's happening is happening. And maybe I should be more clear. People are being policed for who they are. Um, but that is not causing us to not want to do it.
Yeah.
It's
If anything,
almost,
it makes me want to be louder.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. It emboldens me to be more or much.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. Oh, what were we gonna say
Oh,
to now?
no, you go.
No, 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 please.
I was gonna say maybe we jump to the game.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Hey.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, okay. So, um, as people who all frequent the application called TikTok, um, there is like a trending, I guess, um, creator that does this on the street, men on the street show, called Gaydar with Ananaya, where she basically will ask you questions and decide if you're gay, straight, or a homophobe. So we have prepared some bookish questions. I don't know, and I was thinking about this last night, Deidre. I was like, I don't know who gets to decide who is gay, straight, and homophobe.
It certainly can't be me.
Could you imagine?
Deirdre's
I
like,
think we should make Deirdre.
Gavel, Deirdre, you get to decide.
Yeah.
Um, maybe it's just more in the style of like fast answer questions that are maybe a little silly, goofy.
Okay.
But we're basing this off of like your book taste.
Yes.
I have such bad taste. I'm
I'm scared.
Just wait. Okay, amazing. Okay, first question. What was the first book you read that had queer representation in it?
the rainbow fish.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Mine was a book called The Four Dorothys by Paul Radetzky. Right, I think Paul, I don't know what his last name is. But it was about this high school show where they cast four people as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz.
Love. What a great concept.
Right?
It was a whole series.
Did they kiss?
Crazy. What'd you say?
Did they kiss?
They kiss under a tree. I'll never forget it. I was like, oh my god. They're like at a party, at a cast party, obviously, because they're theater kids, and they kiss under a tree, and I was like, oh my god.
All four Dorothys at once?
Yeah, just all.
I'm blanking, but so I'm just gonna say Perks of Being a Wallflower because that's the first one I'm thinking of.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm kind of blanking as well. It's just like looking at my little like nostalgia shelf of like childhood books I have on my bookshelf. But I remember, I guess I was like 15 or so and like definitely reading queer books because
Yes.
I remember the book Man Up and Symptoms of Being Human. And I'm pretty sure I was like 14 or 15 when I read those. And I swear I read something before that. Like even thinking of like Percy Jackson had some queer rep in it even though it's not like a queer series, So I'm like, where did it begin? I don't remember, which is kind of nice because I'm like, oh, it's just been like a part of my life for so long. But I do kind of wish I had that like one book that I could point to. Alas, at this moment, I am drawing a blank.
That's okay.
I'm having the same thing. The first one I can think of that's like this is a queer book was Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Great answers, everybody. What would your favorite book's drag name be?
Okay, I have one immediately prepared, and I would like to go first, please, and thank you.
Please.
Proceed.
Um, okay, I would like to say, um, um, okay, this would be my favorite book's drag name. Bury this bone in my midnight soil.
Oh my God, I love that.
I know. That's
Okay.
that's the whole reason we
Okay,
did
so
this game.
this kind of
Yeah, no,
works.
you orchestrated an entire arena just so you can
I
pull one pun.
Yeah.
Devious. That's devious. Having written a book with a drag queen sorceress as the villain, you'd think that I would have. You know what? Oh my God, wait. No, I can't say any. What's the age for our audience here? Because
Older.
I just
um I used to tell this is not this I'm gonna kind of evade the answer. But I used to threaten my friends that if the whole book thing didn't work out, I was just gonna become like a book themed drag queen. Oh my God, everyone get ready to flinch. And my name was gonna be Fagatha Christie.
Oh my God.
Right. And obviously this didn't make it, further than like me drunk on a couch making this threat, but I did threaten it a lot. And luckily I got published, but who knows how long that'll last. So you may see a poster
It's
coming
still in your back pocket. You
a
never know.
bargain. Yeah, but I think it'd be so fun. Like there's so many bookish things you can do as like a drag artist, right? Like I've seen some I would love to do a rainbow fish act where like I literally like peel off my rainbow scales and just distribute them like queer socialism.
so good.
Anyways, that's my answer.
Excellent.
So I always had a joke that did I have this in the States? Do they have Purdy's, the chocolate company in the States? I'm not sure. But it's like Purdy's Chocolates is a Canadian brand that I see, and they have a chocolate that has a really funny name, and I was always like, oh, that's gonna be my drag name. But I think it also kind of works for my favorite book. So my favorite book is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab,
Oh, I love that.
and the chocolate's name is Red Velvet Meltdown. And so I think that also kind of works for a darker shade.
Red Velvet Meltdown I would pay tickets to go see that show.
Yeah.
It's such a good name. Yeah,
It would also be a great social media handle. Red Velvet Meltdown.
totally.
So good.
This is a tough question because you're also asking me to pick my favorite book.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm still stuck there, but I think in line of like bookish drag queen, the bookish word that I always mispronounced growing up was epilogue. And so in that line, my drag name would be Epologoo.
Oh,
It's a very, I don't know if it works, but I
good.
like it.
So good.
Excellent.
Well, I always joked if I was gonna be a drag king, my drag name would be Bibliophile.
Uh,
Nice.
That's so good.
No one take that. If anyone's listening to this, no one take that.
Bibliophil's fine. Bibliophil's, that's a good one.
Showing my straight card again. I've had days to come up with this, and I still have nothing.
Give us some books. Come on, we'll workshop it now.
Yeah.
I was flip-flopping between Shades of Magic, and I was gonna go with the single name of Miss Shade,
Okay.
right? And then my other favorite book is The Night Circus, and I simply could not think of something.
Like combine them and it
That's
could be
rough.
like the night shades of magic. Or
Hmm.
very spooky. I don't know.
We'll need to workshop it.
Right. So I'm gonna go with Miss Shade. That's my
Love it.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, amazing. Okay. This you can get as crazy as you want. Who is the first gay book character? Wrong answers only.
Dorian Gray. Oh wait, that's the right answer.
I mean, that is a
That's the
correct
correct
answer.
Any Ayn Rand man. They're all so gay. She loved those sassy industrialists.
Men in a coverall. Yes.
She truly. He was like, I'm gonna make the most masculine man I can think of go to architecture school. Like, girl, that's a bottom. Let's try Ein.
Oh, that's so funny.
Were we thinking like non-canon then
Yeah.
character?
What about Jesus? Does that count?
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say all 12
Jesus comes
apostles.
through the Bible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter, Paul, all of the boys.
Miss
Oh.
Magdalene.
Yeah.
Come on.
I still am. I grew up as a huge horse girl, and so I had a lot of like horse girl books, and I feel like all of them were low-key queer coded.
Yeah. Oh, wait, can I tell you that oftentimes when people are like quick answer, who are you? What do you write for? I just tell them that my books are for the girls, the gays, the theys, and the nays. The nays being horse girls.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
So I have to agree with you.
Okay. That is delightful.
Like Saddle Club or like
Yeah.
Sundancer, if anyone read that as a kid. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Black Beauty, I can't remember a word of, but I remember reading it like 100 times in like fourth grade.
Uh-huh.
That's fair. I think we talked about this recently on a different episode, but the Click series, I think all the girls in the Click series.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Delightful.
Yeah, who's the main mean girl? She
Matthew.
has big like gonna come out of the closet as a
Deirdre
lesbian
knows.
later energy.
I was obsessed with those books.
So good.
I still remember her talking about her like lip gloss subscription and how she like always had like a
Oh.
new lip gloss all the time. Why does my brain store that information and not like any math from like grades 5 to 12? Like no idea.
Why do I constantly think about her bedroom? And I know that her bedroom was all white with pops of purple. Why do I know that?
It's as hell.
It's important. It's important.
I'm gonna go Gatsby and Tom. They were in a relationship.
Daisy. Oh my God,
Oh,
Daisy.
also Daisy.
Such a dyke. I loved her. Her and what's the other one? Jordan.
Jordan?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. I wrote fan fiction. I wrote Daisy and Jordan fan fiction for a project in whatever it was, like sophomore year, whenever we read it. And I stood in front of the room and I read it out loud to the entire class. And it was so long that this took up 2 class periods on separate days. Like the teacher was like, honestly, let's just keep going with Ryan's story. So I got up there and I read the rest of it.
What a gift that they
I
got.
Yeah.
love what an author origin story.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. Publish it. I want to read it.
They were mermaids and they were like sinking ships for Neptune. I don't know how we got from like there to there, but
Publish it.
No, why haven't you published it?
Yeah.
I'm on it. All right.
It's public domain.
Type up my fan fiction.
Oh, so good. Okay. Next cue. If you were a drag queen, what story would you read at story time at libraries?
Oh my God.
I have one. Okay, forgive me. I do not remember who the author is, but there's a series of books that are like Prince and Knight and like Princess and Knight.
Yes.
And they're queer kids books they're so cute. And I think those would be absolutely fantastic.
I have to agree. Those books are beautiful.
Off of that, I'd go graphic novel and I'd read The Prince and the Seamstress.
Oh, that's a good one too.
That's very you branded as
Right.
well.
I would immediately get it because I would be like reading like some sort of like Emma Frost title from like the X-Men comics. I'd be like, this is Mother. And we're gonna talk about her, and then I'd immediately be run out of town.
Get out. I would read Pete the Cat and His White Shoes. Not an inherently queer novel, but it very queer. Very, very queer. You get to sing a little bit, a little showmanship. He steps in a whole bunch of stuff. It's crazy. I love Pete the Cat. And you know what? Does Pete cry? Goodness no. He keeps on going and singing his song. And that's beautiful. And I think every child needs to hear that message.
Yeah.
My mind's just going to the one book that I have on my table at all times, which is Harold and the Purple Crayon, which is not
Yeah.
inherently queer book at all, but it just makes me cry every time. And I feel like you could do some really like exploratory dramatics with the narrative of that, of like He just has his crayon. He's just living his life. He's just making the best of every day and doing what he can.
Mm.
I think the best part of most children's books is at the heart of them, they're just like, be kind and have fun.
Yes.
That's like a modern thing though. Old children books used to be so
Oh
serious.
my God.
Like,
They'd be like, you better follow your mom's instructions or else the soot fairy's gonna clog your pores.
yeah.
Run. So
And
I would pick something Victorian.
Yeah, yeah.
We could go really dark with it.
gentle parenting my ass. This is what we grew up
Let's go
with.
back to making sure kids follow the rules.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Okay, do you want to ask the next one?
Yes. Name a book written by a queer person.
The Honeys by Ryan LaSalle.
Oh, you have a copy of The Princess Knight?
Oh my God.
Wait. Oh, it looks so good. It's
It's
big.
it's so pretty.
Is that a final copy or an arc?
No, it's an arc.
It's an arc? Okay. Yeah, I feel like I've literally propped my computer up on like an F.T. Lucan's book, a Silvera book, an Adam Sass book, a Cat Cho book. I'm looking at like a whole range of them. I'll name those.
Perfect.
God Killer by Hannah Canner.
Nice.
I just finished the series. It was so good.
I just read Pucking Around by Emily Rath.
So good. So good. Okay, name a book written by a straight author that should be gay.
Oh my God.
Fire Academy.
The book should be gay, not the person.
Empire Academy.
my
Is that what you said, Rich?
all the like Master and Commander books.
Oh yeah.
These they're like my boyfriend's like he like loves books. He's like a boat boy, right? And so he read like all of these books and he like handed them to me and I was like, "Are these gay?" And he was like, "No, they're about like men who spend exclusively time with one another on a boat in the middle of the ocean in really intense relationships." And I'm like, "Okay, well,
And they're sweaty and they're in
that
the
sounds
sun.
kind of gay to me, but
I'm like, what was the last straight book that I read? I don't remember. Actually, wait, no, I just finished The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, and I do think that I mean the main character. Oh no, that's queer because the main character's bi.
I think so, yeah.
I was gonna be like, I want that one to be more gay.
I also would
Hmm.
like that book to be more gay.
I have to like do research on my own shelves. Hold on.
I know.
I'm just gonna say every straight historical romance novel I've read.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm gonna say any like vampire fiction that calls itself straight is like not allowed. Like
Lying.
it's an inherently queer genre. You
Bridget,
can't
yeah,
see
you're
straight
so right
vampires.
about that. I can't escape the queer lens when I'm reading like any of it.
No,
You
like
know
it's
what?
just
You know my answer was gonna be Twilight, so I'm glad you said that.
yeah. Or like Vampire Academy. In my mind, I have like a Mandela effect where I'm like, yeah, that was a gay book.
Yeah,
Then I come back and
Rosen-
I'm like, oh wait.
the two main characters are obviously in love. They share a bond. What do you mean they're not lovers? What?
Yeah, I always read Katniss Everdeen as like ace as well.
Mm.
Like pre-trauma ace as well. Like so and I don't know. I feel like whenever that debate comes up, which I think is a pointless debate, I feel like that's where I end up like sort of arguing with like a wall.
Fair. Okay, last question. What was the last queer book you read? I feel like we all kind of said that.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other queer books they want to throw out there before we make our final judgment?
I'm like, what the heck have I been reading?
Where Deirdre decides if we're
Yeah,
homophobic.
Deirdre. Wait, Deirdre.
I'll throw out
Imagine.
I produced an interview with Ocean Vuong recently, which was amazing. But for his new book, The Emperor of Gladness, oh my God, like such an incredible book. Like I'm still thinking about it. It just makes you feel so deeply. It's kind of based off of his experiences when he was 19 working at a fast food restaurant, and it's like classic Ocean Vuong is gonna like punch you in the gut with emotions, but also like I'm so proud of him. He was so ambitious with it. It's such a longer book for him. So that's the one I'll throw out.
I just, after consulting my own notes, I realized I just finished Tea You at the Altar by Rebecca Thorne, which is part of
Nice.
her, the Tomes and Tea series. Very cute. And I liked it a lot. It had some really good action sequences and some very fun dragon shenanigans.
I just read Crueler Mercies by Maren Chase, which is a sapphic fantasy, medieval kind of historical-ish. Um, Very fun.
I love that. Regrettably, my answer is my own book because I just got through turning in
Not
edit
regrettably.
or the Dead of Summer's sequel, which the Dead of Summer is the one that comes out in September, so this is the book that comes out after it. So that's like technically the last book that I like completely finished. Although I'm like I sort of listen to like 3 audiobooks at a time, depending on like what I'm listening to. So I'm currently listening to The Survivor Wants to Die at the End, like the latest like Adam Silvera Deathcast book.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so highly recommend. I just went on tour with him and we did like tour stops together, but it was like the 3 days like after the book came out, so I hadn't actually like finished it yet. But it's kind of nice because then I switched to the audiobook and it's wonderful.
Mm. Danielle, you got anything?
No, I've said all of my books.
Okay,
Any
great.
of them that I feel comfortable talking about in a public platform. Yes.
Noted.
Well, congratulations. You're all gay.
Woo!
I knew it.
Thank God.
The police
Hey,
come and arrest us individually.
Pedro hands us a diploma. Here you go.
It's your gay card.
No, my
I
great
wish.
Yeah,
card.
thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle came up with this next topic, so I'm going to let her take it away.
Yeah. I know I mentioned briefly, but I'm an accredited teacher in the province of Alberta in Canada. And the craziest thing happened a couple days ago. I received an email to my teacher email about the possible book bannings that are happening in Alberta. And I was like, not like I know about them through the book space, but for my professional job, for them to be like, you need to go and fill out this survey basically to be like, there should be queer books in schools, there should be books that are diverse in schools, was crazy, especially on the back of Alberta teachers have just voted to go on strike within the next 120 days, which is loco bananas. But I just wanted to talk about some of the book bannings that are kind of happening in Canada and the US, and like how I know I feel like every year we talk about this, which sucks because it's just like, can we stop being awful to queer people or what? But yeah, just kind of opening the floor of like, or what. But yeah, I guess just opening the floor to that because it's been on my mind quite a bit.
I just think it's so silly. Like, there's so many other things that we could be focusing our energy on instead of, oh, this one book with a character who has a single line of being like, I like you, is suddenly like everyone's up in arms. And I'm like, we could be doing better with like our city infrastructure.
Yes.
Maybe let's look at that instead. Can we fix the potholes in our city before we start complaining about, kids' books that have a rainbow on the cover?
Agreed.
The irony always strikes me that like, especially in the United States, you've got like the Republican Party is so determined to protect and enshrine like freedom of speech until the precise moment when someone says something that doesn't sort of fit into this like really like non-existent hearkening to like a time that just like that never existed, right? Like queer people have been here for a long time, way longer than we've actually even had like the words for like gay and straight, right? Like
Yeah.
especially the Victorians that invented the term homosexuality. But prior to that, like there were modalities and culture that were adjusted to sort of like achieve status for like queer people too. And so we've kind of invented all of these things to like hold one another back. And I don't know. It's hard for me to not just get like automatically frustrated and to actually wade into the conversation because it's never really brokered in good faith.
Yeah.
From the author point of view, like the weirdest thing of all is that when your books get banned or like deshelved or something like that, and you tell someone about it, like the typical consumer's reaction is congratulations. like how cool, like you're banned, right? And there's something sort of salacious and interesting about that. And I think that they're thinking like you're banned in the way that like Fahrenheit 451 is banned, right? Like where like books that are banned are sort of notorious and therefore really successful. But the reality is for most authors, especially like mid-list authors, to be deshelved, to be banned is quite simply just like a stifling of a career. And there are real repercussions that come with that. And it does really hurt them. So I always bristle when people try to sort of read like kind of like a glorious scandal into the whole book banning thing, because it's just not really the reality for the author.
Hmm.
And it feels like a little bit of a cop out of like, oh, isn't it so cool that this thing happened? So then we don't actually have to do anything about it. We can just be like, oh, we like, congratulations, you reached this level of whatever. But by saying like you should be happy that you're, or like inferring in some way that you should be uh accepting of someone doing that to your work or to works that you care about of other queer people, I think is crazy. I think I'm like, I agree with you 100%, Brian. I'm like, this is a little loco bananas of stepping back and letting people be complacent by being like, well, you just wear it like a badge.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, of course, like people say, well, you're making the right people upset, right? And but they were going to be upset before they decided to come into school board meetings and then harass poor teachers and librarians. And ultimately, like as an author, you can kind of step back and focus on writing the next thing, but you end up kind of leaving behind all the people, like the teachers and librarians, that do have to sort of sit embedded in those communities and deal with the fallout of like whatever's happening. And there's a chilling effect that then takes place where people are a little bit more reserved with shelving like a pride display because the paperwork that might come with this is not something that they're even really like paid to do, right? It's a ton of extra hours and it's a lot of stress. And um, in the author side of it, we try to kind of find ways to like show up and help teachers and librarians sort of maintain their classroom libraries and their catalog in a queer way. But yeah, it's just a bigger thing than just like congratulations, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side, the frustrating thing has been the denial that it's happening that I'm hearing in
Hmm.
the stratosphere. Because no, it's very much happening, and to your point, Ryan, the access that people have to books. I mean, like we can all speak to that of as content creators, as people who have recommended books and tried to push it into the zeitgeist, to steal Deirdre's word from earlier. um, it's so frustrating to then sit there and hear the denial of that being like, oh, but I can still find it at Indigo. I can still buy those books. Like they're still available. And like, you don't understand what this is doing to the industry as a whole. Like as someone who studied publishing and worked in that space for a bit, like the amount that you have to push back and work against what you've already been working towards,
Mhm.
of just letting kids in particular, but everyone have access to reading, have access to knowledge. That's particularly infuriating about that for me.
Mhm.
And it feels so hypocritical because it's never like, oh, yeah, J.K. Rowling used thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this legislation passed that is now actively harming trans women and trans people in general. Um, but there's no outcries to take her books off of shelves because of that. It's actually for a different reason, which is also like, and then I don't want to be the person to be like, actually, we shouldn't be banning J.K. Rowling's books because my God, I will not stand up for that woman. um, but and like the thousands and thousands of hundreds maybe of authors that behave poorly, make truly bad choices as human beings. And yet there is no outcries for removing those books from shelves. And it's never, like you said, Ryan, it's never in good faith. Like there's always an agenda behind it, which is a funny word to use because they love throwing around this queer agenda that supposedly we're all peddling.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, like you said, everyone's very hypocritical about it because if you really want to, oh, save the children from gayness, diversity, education, then it's like, okay, well, you're not actually implementing anything that will actually help them if you take that resource away. You're not giving educational resources, you're not giving sex education, you're not giving, even things like having, oh, I don't want gay books on my kid's shelf, but I love serial killer romances. Like, there's no nuance to like what you are saving, quote unquote, people from because you're not willing to have a nuanced discussion on anything. It's just, I don't like that, and I'm not going to question why. And so I don't like it, so you can't like it. And therefore, it has to be banned because it's bad. And I think that also kind of plays into the like, well, that's bad. So if I don't like that, that means I'm a good person. And that dichotomy is also so dangerous. And I think that's what the queer community has kind of been placed as. Like, if you are queer, you're bad. And that is not a moral thing. You can still be gay and an awful person, and you could be straight and a good person. And it doesn't like that, those two things don't come together. And that's what people have decided them as. So I feel like I had like three different points and I put them all in one talking
Oh,
point. But
No,
I
and
had,
thank
yeah,
you,
there's a lot of,
Rachel, for opening up my TED Talk and my personal interest, which is morality and the United States. I don't know how it is in Canada. It's like pretty clear in the US that there is no separation of church and state. There's been so much legislation passed since the Victorian era that is directly from a church point of view and this idea of morality, and it's become so entrenched and meshed. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, where people genuinely have a hard time of just removing morality. Like how you go through the world in your body and how you interact with a book is not inherently moral. It's when you then, for instance, go to a library, check out 20 books, and decide to burn them.
yeah.
That
Mhm.
that is a moral statement.
Hmm.
But it's also like, um, I always think it's interesting that it is a certain moral lens. It is not like everyone agrees on the same type of whatever. It's I always am shocked how much it becomes through one lens of usually Christianity or some kind of Catholicism of this is the view of what is okay, um, where all of a sudden it gets to dictate how everybody, regardless of what you subscribe to, do with your life, which I think is crazy. And I think something I've noticed is the like fear mongering that happens around this too. Like people who come into contact with book bannings on a very like surface level, I find if you don't engage with it fully, you often get misled of like what is actually happening. Like
Mhm.
these big broad strokes are being made about like this is why are there books in schools with like explicit sexual content? Why is there da 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 da? And it's always, I mean, it's labor, right? It's labor for you to then have to go talk to people and be like, hey, like as a teacher, and this has happened more times than I'm a first year teacher. Like people have been doing it for 19 years. I'm like, I can't imagine how much time they spend talking to parents about how the content in books it is fine. Like it is part of the curriculum. It's part of the Alberta curriculum. Alberta Education says that we can teach these books, and people will be like, we think LGBTQ plus things are things that should be discussed at home, not at school. Please don't talk to our kids about this. Please don't. This is not your place as a teacher to be instructing. When specifically in the Education Act, it is something that we need to touch on. It is something that we need to teach. And so having these like smear campaigns of like, this is this awful thing, and these people, if they're trying to save these books, it makes them this kind of person or whatever. um I just find it like I agree, it's exhausting, and it's also um just it's so hypocritical. It's exhausting and hypocritical.
I
Well,
think
there's never any room for nuance in this kind of
No.
thing.
Right.
You're talking about like, oh, there's sexual scenes in this book, and so therefore it's bad. But that's not always the case. And something that, yeah, that is said to be sexual in a kid's book is holding hands. And you're like, well, that's not, or maybe they kiss on the cheek and they're like, well, that's sexual. But
Puberty.
would you look at it that way if it was a straight couple in that book? Or are you just using this as a way to get rid of something that you don't like? And yet again, that could be used for, I know this might be like a stereotypical example, but like Looking for Alaska by John Green is banned because there is a sex scene in it, which first of all, like teenagers know what sex is. And second of all, like it's used as this is an awkward experience that the character grows from, and it's not comfortable and it's not something that they really enjoy. But then later, when they find someone that they do have feelings for, kissing them is much more enjoyable, and they find that like they understand the difference of intimacy. And so like that's a really important teaching moment that teenagers, especially younger teenagers, could really use to be able to see that, you know, in something that they consume and to just flat outright be like, no, this is bad and I don't like it. There's no nuance, there's no room to learn and grow, and that is what frustrates me the most.
Yeah, I mean, why, like, specifically children's authors, like young adult authors, like myself, we think a lot about how we're going to portray acts that are common, right? In like in an adolescent experience. And in some ways, we're kind of the best people suited for exactly what you described, right? Like showing the difference, showing the awkwardness, trying to find a way to teach a lesson through these moments. Like we're thinking about that. We're thinking about the end reader as a child, as a developing teenager, and we're not trying to create something pornographic or like scintillating, right? Like it's not we're not trying to like titillate the teens, right? We're trying to kind of depict like the realistic experiences, and these are the people that like ban books are also the first people to be surprised like when their teens like act out, right? Like they just cannot conceive of it, but they've also given their teens nothing to sort of like be in dialogue with because they've purged any sort of like media or reflection out of like that person's life, leaving them to only really be able to find these things through, the broad reaching searches that you can do through like a search engine. And the things that are going to come up are not going to be things that have the welfare of that kid in mind, right? Like if you're Googling boobies on the like TV, right? Like in the hotel room, right? It's gonna be something fucking crazy versus, reading a book written by someone who is sitting there dedicated to making sure that like this is like either accurate or supportive or at least real, right? And it drives me nuts. I will say though, sorry for talking a lot, but
No.
on the positive side of this, there are so many queer books nowadays than there were even a few years ago, right? And a big part of why we're seeing all of these book bans is because there's this swan song that's going on within like kind of like fascist circles because they understand that they have already lost this war at like a larger level. And so that all that's really left for them to do is to litigate at like a cultural level, right? Like the types of representation and things like that make it out. And so the numbers are actually in the favor of the queer community because we are such a minority to the larger population, yet we represent such a like engine of like culture in media that we're actually sort of like over pronounced when it comes to like conversations around this. And so I sort of fully believe that we wouldn't be seeing this type of like large scale organized effort from book banners if they didn't feel like the very real encroaching threat of a culture that already exists and really can't be put back in the closet. So I think the more stuff like this, the more like pride parties, podcasts, and the more visibility, I think it kind of just embeds us in the fabric of like history. And yeah, it's going to be some really nasty work trying to keep these books on shelves and to keep them publishing. And I think, if we want to talk about the work of doing that, I suggest everyone reach out or join Authors Against Book Bans,
Mhm.
or at least like follow those accounts if you're not an author, because authors are organizing and there's so many more people on our side of it than there are on the other side. But it's just a difference in volume, really, at this point.
Yeah. I always tell people like when I get asked about my research and sort of what I've been working
Yeah.
on publishing, um, that when they ask me like, okay, what can I do? now that I've like heard what you have to say and I now know things that I didn't know, I'm like, just talk to people in your life. Because the worst thing you can do is just keep it to yourself.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Okay, we have one more question for you. Thank you for that wonderful discussion. To round things out, what would you use as gay propaganda to brainwash the youths?
What a pivot.
He lives in the same world. You can tell which questions I wrote and which ones Deirdre wrote.
I would use Lisa Frank notebooks.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. Although, did you know that Lisa Frank is like a terrible person?
I need to watch
I
that
did know that.
documentary.
Yes.
Yeah, there's like I mean, I'm now that's the extent of what I know about this. But I too need to watch this documentary. But like, I think her like son or like someone related to her is trying
Her
to,
husband.
yeah. So
Yeah. Her husband was like, it's crazy. You guys got to watch it. You have to watch it.
Okay,
It's
I'll add it to my
okay.
list this weekend.
What did I write a note for
I
this
think
one?
scented stickers,
Okay.
uh,
you
yeah.
know?
I think maybe like what's the current rage? Labubus.
Yeah.
You know how in like I don't know if anyone here is like a big like anime nerd, but like back in the day, like Sailor Moon was the show that I loved, and that is in and of itself like very queer propaganda. But every episode, every week's episode was about like the evil people trying to brainwash people through like a fun new trend. And like one episode would be like plants that sucked your energy out when you were dreaming, and then it was like treadmills that like drain your energy when you're using them. And so I feel like the Labubus would be right up the alley of like
Mm.
new rage, but really they're like gremlins. They like hatch at night and I don't know, like do make all the paintings in your apartment crooked and gay. I don't know.
I feel like TikTok is already the thing that
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
turned
that's
many
true.
people gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I definitely got gayer when I joined TikTok, so
Yeah, I was thinking while we were talking about like um how I was as a teen, and I was, in the Catholic school system my entire life. And just thinking about like I don't need to give kids any gay propaganda. They'll find it themselves. I found it myself. Like
Yes.
I was sitting in the hallways of my Catholic school in high school on AO3 finding the queer stuff. I didn't need anyone to like detract that, even if they were the naysayers. Like that's all I needed. So I guess I would say maybe like fan fiction, but within moderation.
Yes.
Honestly, the Catholic Church too.
The Catholic
Yeah.
Church.
No, for real.
Pretty queer.
I was eyes locked on them picking the Pope, and specifically the day when they chose him and they started marching everybody into the square. I was like, hello?
Diva.
This is theater. Are you joking?
It's protected.
Like high drag.
No,
It
for
is-
real.
No, I had a period in life where I was actually considering being a nun, and
Me
when I
too.
think back on it, it was mainly because it was like, oh, I'm gonna live the rest of my life in this convent of other women, and it was the writers nuns, like they were writers and artists and stuff. That was their thing. And I
Ooh.
was like, this sounds like a pretty good deal. Not really consciously knowing what was happening. So yeah, the Catholic Church.
I mean, they do some wild stuff, but damn, do they have a good aesthetic.
Oh my God, yeah. The
Yeah.
smoke.
They do some
All the
wild
incense.
stuff. Yeah.
I love when
The
Katie
robes,
hears
the
that.
jewels.
You're eating the blood in the body of some dead old guy. That's crazy.
And if you ever go to like a Greek Orthodox church, it's like all of that, but like gold. It's like literally
Yeah.
we like came in and like redecorated everything. It's like somehow even gayer and more homophobic. It's wild.
I would say crocheting would be I feel like crocheting, the gays have appropriated from little old ladies.
Mhm.
But I would use that as gay propaganda to brainwash the youth. Just crocheting or like cross stitching, like the little things people make that are like crazy that they hang on their door. That's what I would do.
It's very like Emily Dickinson core. I like it.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. Okay, we've come to the part of the podcast where we talk about what we are currently reading right now. What is everybody reading? You also like currently reading can be like this is the next book I'm going to start. It doesn't have to because I know we were talking about books we are reading. So, what's on your TBR for June? What's the vibe? What do you want to read?
I'll start if people want to ruminate. So I'm going to talk about Pucking Around, which I mentioned earlier in the episode. I read this a couple weeks ago, and I've been saving it for my current reads for this episode. So this is by Emily Rath. It's the first book in the Jacksonville Rays series. So for anybody that doesn't know, it's a hockey romance. And it's a hockey wide shoes romance,
Which
which
is so funny because that's my MO. That is
I
not
know.
Deirdre's MO. So the fact that Deirdre has read this is hysterical to me. I love this is my day. I
Yeah.
love
And so I picked up the audiobook through Libby and it had the prequel and the full novel in one file.
Oh,
So I know. So I got to listen to so many hours. So the prequel follows Rachel and she is like at her hotel bar and she's just come from her brother's wedding. She's trying to go back home and she has been rejected from this really prestigious um, medical fellowship that in sports medicine that she wants to do. And this guy at the bar starts annoying her. She's like, please get away from me. And then this very, very handsome man comes up and is like, that's my sister. Leave her alone. And the guy is like, okay, I guess. And then she's like, well, you're not my brother. Um, Wanna bang? And literally, they go from being strangers to creating a game where they're not going to tell each other important information about each other. So they don't know each other's names. They don't know what they do. They don't know where they live, but they know that they're both twins. They know why they were both in town. And throughout this one night, because that's how long the prequel is, this man decides that he is in love with her and wants to marry her. She wakes up the next morning, she leaves without telling him, and he is devastated. We come to the beginning of the novel, and Rachel has now gotten the fellowship because somebody in the program got injured and can't take the spot anymore. But the way the fellowship usually works is that when you get in, you kind of get to say, like, oh, I really want to work in like football. And so they'll place you on a football team. And it might even go so far as like, I want to work on a football team in the Northeast. But she's getting placed on a hockey team in Florida. And which in and of itself I find hysterical.
yeah.
And she's like, well,
The
that's
Florida
great.
team is one of the finals in the Stanley Cup,
I
which I
know.
found funny.
So she gets sent to this brand new team. She gets picked up by one of the hockey players. They're putting her up in this apartment. And from the moment she gets there, her experience is just constant hijinks. She gets locked out of her apartment on her balcony in only a giant t-shirt, and she calls the guy that just picked her up because he's her neighbor, and she's like, "Please, you have to help me climb over the balcony so that I can sleep in your apartment tonight because I can't get in." And he like accidentally feels her up, but he's not mad about it, and neither is she. She gets to work the next day, and lo and behold, her mystery man from the one night stand is on this hockey team. And we get to see their relationship flourish. We also know that he is best friends with the guy that picked her up from the airport. And they have like not really said that they have feelings for each other, but once they both start relationships with Rachel, they then start talking about their relationship between the two of them. And then there is another member of the team that gets brought into their polyamorous cuddle puddle. I don't really know. I can't remember. They called it like a pyramid at one point, and I was like, I don't think there's enough people for a pyramid, but okay.
That
Um,
is not at all what I thought that book was about.
no. And so that's sort of like the relationship structure. She is a PT, like sports medicine person for their team. And her dad is a rock star. So her boundary with all of them is that their relationship can't be public.
I see.
And shockingly, the way people find out about their relationship is not that they are on airplanes together talking and acting cuddly. It is something else.
Oh,
And
fun.
it was a great time. I don't know if I'm going to continue the series, but it was it was a time. And it was long. I'm seeing here because I've been trying to keep their names in my head, but the only person I can remember is Rachel. Um, it's 756 pages on Kindle.
Oh my God.
It's long.
Right now, I'm reading a series that was really popular when it was out, but so maybe some of y'all have read it, but has anyone read Laini Taylor's Daughter of Smoke and Bone series?
Yes, I love that series so much.
I had my eye on it for a little while, but finally someone told me that the audiobook was excellent, and so I decided to like listen to it. And the audiobook is in fact excellent, but I'm also just like I'm blown away by like the writing is gorgeous and the story itself is like it's good. I'm right. I think so many things have now become derivative of this like genre that like it feels familiar, but I have to kind of recalibrate and understand that what's being referenced in like the Zeitgeist is sort of these types of books. And I'm just kind of captivated by, the fact that Laini Taylor's main character, Carew, in this, she's like the it Tumblr girl of that era, right? Like she's got blue hair genetically, right? And she's got like twin sabers, and she's just sort of all of these like it's like a mishmash of like the not like other girls girl. But it is so like loving in its embrace of like her as a character that I don't know, I found it has kind of healed something in me where I feel like now we're always poised to hate the girl who's not like other girls, but we kind of forget that like that paradigm of girlhood is often born out of a resistance for other things that are potentially harmful for like young girls. And so if we sort of dial it back to like the girl that Carew is in like the Tumblr era, like I can really understand the book a little bit better. And I'm just kind of enjoying it for like the unabashed embrace of like this type of character. Because now my issue with sort of like the current type of character that we get is always sort of like a, and this is not true. You can definitely find books outside of this, but like what seems to sort of be most beloved is the like, I don't want power and like why me, like that kind of character. And there's definitely like room for that in my heart as well too, but it's just fun to read about a character who's like, yeah, my hair's blue, and yeah, I have sabers, and I'm gonna beat everybody up. And I'm like, where were you? I've missed you. I've missed you. And the writing itself is like stunning. Really, I've had to pause several times, like go back and just like understand how Lainey structured a whole passage to sort of like pull off a certain twist at the end. And I've really been enjoying it. So everyone's already read this. I'm late to this party, but I'm having a great time.
I'm so happy that another person is on the Laini Taylor train.
I love
Hooray.
it. Oh my God. I'm like, I
So
can't.
incredibly beautiful.
Yeah. Wait, would you
I'm
agree though? I'm curious. Would you like Rachel in sort of the way that I've just described it though? Is that also how you would sort of like frame it for like someone who doesn't know anything about it?
Yeah, totally. It's a also grain of salt because it's been a little while since I reread this. I just think yeah, I'm more like the overall impression of things of like that was one of the first series that did a lot of the things that we might see now. So that holds a special place in my heart because it was so emotional and there was so many small moments of like intimacy with the couple that were not so there wasn't so much fighting, there wasn't so much tension and this and that and will they, won't they? Like they were always a part of a team. And I think that was so nice to read when I was younger, but also now I keep going back to that of like, no, I want a couple that like genuinely likes each other and like is striving to be together. And the way that they treat each other as a couple and as someone they love is so beautiful. And like the way that Lainey writes about it, about like melancholy and sadness and being in that relationship of loving someone so hard, it just gets me.
Oh, well, we're gonna have to have like a side conversation about this as I get through the series because I'm like desperate to talk about it.
Totally. Well, I'm like if you like this one, the Strange the Dreamer duology
Yes. Oh, I can't wait.
is I have a tattoo from that series. Like I love it so much. So
Yeah,
highly
that
recommend.
I meant to read Strange the Dreamer. I just got them confused and like
Mhm.
downloaded the wrong book, but I'm delighted in my mistake. So I will get there at some point.
I am currently reading All Systems Red, the first of the Murderbot Diaries, and I'm really liking it. I love this sassy, pessimistic robot. It's very fun. Yeah, I've never read anything by Martha Wells, and I just thought it was finally time. So I'm listening to the audiobook, and it's about in the future, this half, I guess, like cyborg, kind of like half metal, half human murder bot, aka person who has been like programmed as a security bot, has been taken along on a mission from these scientists who are going to a new planet and like searching for new materials. And then something goes wrong with the other encampment. And it's told from the perspective of this murder bot who has hacked his own programming and so doesn't necessarily get all of the directives from the main company that controls it. And it also really loves watching soap operas. And so the whole thing is like, oh my God, I have to work. I just want to go back and watch like the soap opera because I'm in the middle of a really good port right now and like that kind of thing. So it's very funny. But then also it's kind of this found family story of like growing to actually love humans and not just see them as clients. So it's a very interesting, it's very short. It's a very interesting look of like a sci-fi novel that I've never read before. So I'm very much so enjoying that, and I'll probably finish it tonight.
That's coming out as a show, right?
It
So
is. And you know what? The funny part is I knew that ahead of time, but as I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, this would make a great TV show. And then I remembered that it's going to be a TV show. So I'm
the show's
definitely going to watch
good.
it.
You should I've only watched like one or two episodes and I haven't read it. But now I want to go read the book because I can only imagine how much better it might be as a book. But the show is really fun. It's worth it.
Mm. I didn't even
Awesome.
realize it was out.
Mhm. Yeah, you know why? Because I think it's on like Apple TV or HBO or something. It's like one
That's
of those
why.
where they like just don't tell you. And
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
out there like shh, shh, shh,
No marketing.
marketing. Don't talk about it. But I think it is. I have watched it, so it must be available somewhere.
Say, Ryan, you're not alone. I also have not read Laini Taylor yet, even though it's been on my shelves for years, and it's my girlfriend's like one of her favorite series ever.
Yeah.
So I
Love
think I
that.
might give the audiobook a chance.
Try it. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, again, I think I'm gonna love it so much. Do I have the emotional capacity for this? I am currently rereading um, an arc of a book that it's not going to come out until July 1st, which feels particularly homophobic. It's like one of the favorite books I've read this year. I read it in January. I asked HarperCollins for any version of it that they had, and so they sent me like the PDF with the watermark that I had to like zoom in on my Kobo to read every line and like shove it over. But I did because I love it so much. And if you know the very intrinsic personality shift that I've had in the past year, it's that I'm a really big fan now of Formula One, which is I've never been into any sports before. I don't know what happened, but I love Formula One, and
Same.
I'm yes, Deirdre. Okay, we'll talk about this later.
Great.
I also want to talk about this in our next episode.
Okay. But I really do think that Formula One romances are coming into the forefront as the next like subgenre. And this is called Crash Test by Amy James, who is a Canadian author who wrote a Wordle romance previously. So she's really on it
Oh,
with the like trends of the time.
my
Um,
girlfriend
and
loved the Wordle romance.
yes, Crash Test is it's I've not cried at a book harder than this book in many, many years. It's about two Formula One racing drivers who have had a secret relationship for about a year because that world is very intense and very homophobic in several ways. Um, and it starts off with a crash. So one of the drivers gets injured, is comatose, very dramatic. And it's kind of a second chance romance, but also a self-discovery and self-exploration of both of these drivers being in this like very media-centric, very lavish and glamorous world. I think it's just like the Formula One world has so much narrative fodder for
Yes.
romances that it really works, and I'm really excited to see more in that because it's just like you take 20 of these hyper rich, hyper privileged people, but who have been doing this since they were like 5 years old and very like in that world. And to have it with a queer lens as well, which, I'm not gonna post anything things, but it's a it feels like a queer space. There's a lot of queer Formula One fans, which was the surprise for me as well. Um, and this book was just so emotional and so driven with their characters and their love. And I cannot wait to talk about it and cannot wait for people to find out about it because there's been a few Formula One romances, but very much like straight Formula One romances. And I'm like, guys, this universe is so queer. You just have to look a little bit deeper and there's so much there. So yeah.
I love that.
Um, I'm in the middle of a bunch of books right now. Um, but the one I'll talk about a little bit is I'm almost done the audiobook for Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green that came out. It's really beautiful. And if the girls who know that I love John Green. The unforeseen
Thought you were
review.
gonna say the girls who know I love tuberculosis.
And
Love.
what if I did?
Our very own Typhoid Mary.
Oh my gosh. That's my drag name. Crazy. It's taking me a while to get through the audiobook because I like to savor John Green audiobooks. The Anthropocene Review, the first time I listened to it, I took a very, very long time because sometimes his voice does make me fall asleep, so I do have to like be like up and awake and like focused. But I'm really, really enjoying it. It's like classic John Green nonfiction where it just makes you think about the world and make you feel grateful for what you have, but also like look at the disparity of being alive and how tuberculosis is woven into so much of what we have every day. Or like it's just crazy. And I was at the bookstore the other day, Indigo. I was at Indigo the other day. And I was looking at the physical copy that I ended up picking up, and this like woman sidled up to me and she was like, "Do you recommend this book?" And I was like, "Actually, I do. I'm reading it and I'm really enjoying it." And then she goes on. We have this conversation about how her father had tuberculosis, and like we just had this like beautiful 20-minute conversation in Indigo talking over this book, and in the end she was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna buy it." And I was like, I'm so happy that we had this weird moment over this book. But it's a really great book. I highly recommend if you like nonfiction, or even if you don't, give it a try. It's also very short. So
Have you gotten to the part about the cowboy hat, Danielle?
I also am listening to it while I'm doing my morning prep work.
Fair enough.
Is it good? Should I look forward to it?
Yeah, well, he just has this like interesting chapter on fashion and how it's connected to tuberculosis, and that's what I really liked about the book is like the cultural history that he weaves into it, and
Yes.
like especially like with the Victorian age and like the rouge that people wore, it was like tuberculosis chic, and
Yes.
so he really did his research, but no, I love that book.
Everybody's reading such good books. I'm like, yeah, I want to read all of these.
No, I'm like so sold on every single thing that people mentioned.
If that's one thing we do here on Books on the Brain is we curate people that have good taste in books.
May we? Yes, yes.
I don't think I have good taste. I think that I'm surrounded by good influences that counteract my pretty bad taste, to be honest. And this is it. It's happening. I'm gonna steal all these titles.
Amazing.
Do you find that with writing, Ryan? Like, do you have a particular genre that you're able to read while you're writing and then not read when you're not
Yeah.
writing? Yeah.
So the thing about me is that I'm a pretty bad reader. Like I was in like remedial reading growing up. And I never kind of like got it down. And so I'm a very slow reader. So audiobooks were sort of a big revolution for me, but I don't listen that often. And so I have a kind of embarrassingly short list of books that I've finished every single year, like maybe two or three some years, and if I'm lucky, 10. Which is like I know like sacrilege and like bookish spaces, but as a result, I do think that has kind of preserved some of what is like my natural voice and approach to like storytelling. But at the same time, it's cool because then I read something like Laini Taylor, right, that I should have read like a decade ago and I'm like blown away by this. Like everything is so new and exciting. And everything feels so fresh and interesting to me. So I will say that that's just fiction. I read a lot of nonfiction as like research. So typically if I'm working on a project, I'm reading like whatever I can find about like the topics of it. So like in my last book that I wrote was about we don't have to go into it, but my point being is that it was about like sciencey stuff. So that I was reading a lot of, and that doesn't really make it into the writing in so much as like tone, more so like the actual stuff that I get exposed to.
That's cool. That's interesting.
Yeah. I wish I read more. I'm trying. I really am trying. So that's
We
why,
all do.
yeah. So
Listen, I opened book threads this morning to a conversation that reading 20 books a year is overconsumption. So
What?
I know.
Oh my
Exactly.
God.
who are you
Yeah.
taking? You're taking those books out of the starving mouths of children.
Thank you.
That's
Uh,
what I've learned. It's like you're never gonna hit the barometer of everyone's like Goodreads goal. So just like go at your own pace and read what you want to read.
Yes.
So Threads is the Wild West of book conversations.
For
oh
It is.
God.
real.
This week specifically has been so bad. It just feels like Twitter again, which I don't know. I feel is a little comforting as well in its familiarity. I'm like the same people up to their nonsense. Here they go again.
They just find a new platform and they do the same thing.
Yeah.
I
Good
mean,
old reliable.
yeah, like, and it's always the people. We don't have to talk about this for long, but it's always the people who are like, let me be the first to say that we cannot let these serious conversations be derailed by those of us that just want to stir the pot. And like the person will be holding like a comically large wooden spoon, having just shot themselves. And you're like the fucking Stregonona of like book discourse over here. And you're like, let me be the first to say we cannot let ourselves be derailed. And I'm like, oh my God, what's happening again?
Please,
It's
I'm
it's
begging people to
theater.
get a grip.
Yeah, I know. I would tell people to touch grass, but I just don't want that to happen to grass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did grass do to you?
Yeah, because the grass does not deserve that.
No.
Keep your bad
Touch
vibes off the
asphalt.
grass.
Leave the
It'll kind of
grass
like wither
alone.
away as you like step on it. So,
It
they
probably
should
would.
keep us all in one space, and I guess that space is threads.
Yeah.
I guess.
Right now, absolutely.
Well, thank you all so much for coming onto our Pride Party. It has been an absolute delight chatting with all of you. I know it's been a wild ride talking about book bans, but also propaganda.
Thank you for having us. This is so much fun.
It's
Where
so
can
fun.
Thanks. Where can our listeners find each of you now that we know if they aren't already following you, they should be?
Hmm.
I'm listening.
Oh, I was gonna
I'm
wait for each of you
Rachel.
to say.
I'm Rachel. I'm a model who's read. You can find me on every social media under the same name.
I'm at Bridge Lakes Books on TikTok and at Bridge Lakes Books with two S's on Instagram. Don't ask. And you can find me there. You could also check out the next chapter where I do columns recommending books every so often.
And my name is Ryan LaSala. I'm an author, so if you just look me up, you can find all of my titles wherever books are sold, but most of my social media is consolidated under the handle the Ryan LaSala on like TikTok and Threads and Blue Sky.
Amazing. If you want to follow me and Danielle, I'm at Deirdre Rose Morgan on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube and Bindery.
That's true. And I'm DJ Books on TikTok, Instagram, and also on Threads.
Thank you so much for listening. My spiel at the end is always so long. Please follow our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are also on YouTube. If you haven't been watching our podcast, feel free to hit that like button. If you go over to our Instagram page, there will be a promotion post, and you should comment every color of the rainbow in an emoji. You pick whatever you want. It's up to you. Please be sure to leave us a review. That is always helpful. Please make sure you go follow our wonderful guests if you aren't already following them. And we will chat to you in the next one. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.